to 3M after a public spat over that company producing PPEs. Now, this as governors around the country, especially in New York, folks, put out an urgent call for ventilators and masks. Many are now looking even to China for help. Joining me to discuss, former Trump trade advisor Curtis Ellis. Curtis, first I got to just say, I was a little frustrated just watching this whole thing evolve with the 3M, and then then they put out a communique that they were trying to do humanitarian things, and I thought they made it even worse, suggesting that the White House didn't want them to help other parts of the country or the world. But this underscores a problem that you have talked about for so long. These big businesses manufacturing things in China, and we have to go begging for it hat in hand in the middle of a crisis.
Yeah, it's really more than unfortunate. It's despicable. It's unacceptable. 48 countries around the world have put export restrictions in place on medical equipment, on medical goods like this, which goes to show the globalist fantasy of we can have global supply chains and nothing could possibly go wrong is just that, a fantasy. When push comes to shove, national governments will look out for what's good for their own citizens, and they don't give a fig about global supply chains, globalism, et cetera, et cetera. And now we see, unfortunately, in the case of 3M, we saw they are so invested in their global supply chains that they jettisoned the needs of the American people, in that they were even selling to distributors who were then exporting the goods. Now, they're not entirely to blame all themselves. China was sending out its agents to scour the globe and buy up a lot of this equipment on a global scale and then hoard it in China to really basically cripple the world's response to the pandemic. But this whole fantasy that we can have global supply chains for critical goods, the coronavirus pandemic has exposed the danger of that governing philosophy of multinational companies.
And Curtis, though, you have to wonder if it's too late to undo this. There was talk of perhaps putting a tariff on Saudi Arabian oil to help save our oil producers. It makes no sense to be importing that much oil when we're sitting on such a glut. But it feels like, but some people in that industry said, no, we can't do it because of the supply chain. And it feels like this whole supply chain is the Gordian knot. It can't be undone.
And that's really ridiculous. The global supply chains were built in the last 20 to 30 years, maybe 40 years if you really want to get, look far back. But mostly in the last 20 years. The last antibiotic plant in the United States closed in 2004. So we had supply chains in this country. There is no reason we can't do it again. And I'll just give them their own medicine right back to them. They keep telling us manufacturing is a very small part of the economy. We are mostly a service economy. If that's the case, we can afford to pay a little bit more to manufacture in this country because manufacturing is a very small part of the economy. So if you add a little bit to a little part of the economy, it's quite affordable. And we absolutely must do it.
Touche, my friend, touche. Curtis Ellis, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Charles. Keep up the good work.
And coming up, folks,